Is my microphone echoing or no?
I think you're
No?
okay. Yeah, I think you're okay.
Okay. Sounds like it was echoing. It sounds like it's echoing for me, so I was just making sure. But anyway, we are based in Wilmington, Delaware, but we've been facilitating short sales, as you said, Larry, for 24 years. Interestingly enough, my former life is I was a neonatal intensive care nurse, and then moved into the short sale business. So I am still nursing, as all of you know, meaning these sellers who need counseling, and it's an emotional state. So I'm not in the hospital world, but I feel like in the short sale world, I'm still pulling my nursing into it. And
How
then
did you transition from nursing into short sales there, Denise?
So I know, interesting question. So our kids were younger, and my husband, who's my business partner, he had a finance background. And we were like, you know what? We're going to start investing in real estate, save some money for our kids' college education. That'll be years from now. So we started dabbling and in the real estate world in our little local area. And we would buy, distressed properties and we'd fix them and flip them. And from there, this is very early 2000s, so before 2008. And as all of you know, in the short sale world, an appraisal's needed on the property. So through us doing it on our own back in that time, it was very small. And then it just grew where we would do one or two flips a year, and then it went into three or four. And then '07 and '08 hits. And realtors are like, wow, I was doing your broker's price opinion and I now have a short sale. I never really understood exactly what that was and why we were doing a value for a bank. So then our model flipped and the realtor started bringing us in to be the facilitator. And at that point, we had already been doing it for 8 years. So we already knew how to navigate the banks. So we were getting all of our business from realtors, attorneys, escrow companies, title companies. They really didn't know anything about a short sale. And we had those 8 years experience. We stopped fixing, flipping. I gave up my nursing to now nurse the distressed sellers. My husband left his finance business and then Capital grew to now we facilitate across the country with Hawaii and Florida being our busiest states, even though Delaware, PA, and Maryland are our back door. But we made it through. Loved what you said, Larry. All those times there were no foreclosures. There were minimal short sales from probably 21 to 24. It had slowed
Well,
down.
well, if you think about it, like we almost stopped the foreclosure process, right? Like when COVID
Yeah.
hit, I had 24 properties in Cleveland, Ohio, and literally we couldn't foreclose, we couldn't evict, we couldn't do anything. So guess what? Every one of my tenant was like, "Oh, I don't have to pay." Like, okay, I'm not paying, right? Like, and I think that happened a lot. And then if somebody was having trouble and they actually owned the property, they could call the bank and they could be like, "Man, I'm having a hard time." Oh my goodness, what if you didn't have to pay for a year and you could call back and do that year over year over year? So this is where, like, even though we've had some mass appreciation, that's sucked up a lot of the equity, right? Like it's almost like you've
Yeah.
just kept refinancing every single year and pulling all of your funds out of it.
Right, right. And that's one of the biggest reasons why all of a sudden there's this spike in short sales is because you could call the bank. And unfortunately, these distressed sellers, they had no idea that when they got their mortgage payoff statement, that non-payment of a year or year and a half was put on as what's called a second mortgage or a partial claim. Not sure if any of you have ever heard of them. So the bank would say, okay, your mortgage payment is $2,000. The next year you don't want to pay, so we're going to take $24,000 and put a partial claim on title. So then you decide to go and sell. You go and get the mortgage payoff statement, and the payoff statement comes in. Realtor says, okay, great news. You're going to still walk away with $20,000. Escrow or title or the attorney's office pulls title, And then on title, it shows a partial claim with housing and urban development. These were government programs that they put in place during COVID. So the amount of calls that our company is getting a week to 2 weeks prior to closing is off the
Mhm.
charts. That's what we're seeing. Nobody understood what they were signing. So
Yeah.
now we're getting out to educate as much as we can to say, when you're meeting with that seller, if they, say if your numbers are close, you want to ask them during COVID or at any time, did you participate in any kind of program where the bank did not require you to pay for a year, year and a half, and or they modified your loan? Because I can almost guarantee you title's going to come in and you might have a second mortgage on there and or you're going to have a way higher balance than anticipated. People are looking at the mortgage statements, they're not getting a full payoff. You must get a full payoff when you go meet with that seller. Lock up your listing, but then while your listing is locked up, go and get a payoff directly from the bank or the attorneys if you're in an attorney state, because I can guarantee you it's going to be a whole lot more than anticipated. I mean, think about it, like what you said, Larry. Like people were calling, realtors were telling us they were calling the banks just to find out more about this forbearance program during COVID. And you didn't even have to give financials. Like, when could you ever do a short sale or get a loan and just say to the bank, oh, I don't want to pay?
Yeah.
That's what they were allowing. It was like you were at a casino and, you hit because the lights would flash. Realtors would tell us across the screen and say, congratulations, you don't have to pay for a year. So now if they're needing to sell, it's becoming a huge problem. And the spike up in short sales is going off the charts. I mean, Delaware is one of the top states in the country for the amount of foreclosures. Actually, why we're seeing so many in Florida is because people left to head to Florida during COVID, and they were just buying up, buying up. And because of the condo and the HOAs and all the assessments, they cannot afford their homes any longer, which is unfortunate. Same thing we're seeing in Hawaii. All of the assessments and the condo fees, and they can't pay a $3,000 mortgage if their condo dues went up to 1,500.
I would
So
also make some
Florida's
assumptions, maybe in the vacation rental space as well, because during COVID, right, like everything expanded. Well, man, I can't leave the country, right? So you had all of these areas. I mean, I have a 20-acre ranch in Fredericksburg, and at one point, I was getting $800 a night in rental rates during COVID because everybody had to stay within. Now that is cut in half, right? And part of that is because everybody went and bought vacation rentals. And now you're having short-term rental, laws and regulations come up in the cities, in the counties, and things like that. And it starts depreciating your profit margins. And so I would anticipate there's going to be a lot in those vacation rental markets as well.
right, right. Yes. I think we're going to see them, I mean, all over based on what we're seeing and the amount of calls we're getting from realtors. It's just unbelievable that this is happening. It's happening everywhere. Why Hawaii is one of our busiest states is because of the VA sellers and they're PCSing, they're coming back to the mainland, and they bought in the last 2 to 3 years, and now their orders have transferred them somewhere else, and they need to sell, and they can't pay that loan off because they 100% financed. Now,
Oh no.
yeah, the good news though is, and this is where we're seeing a lot of concerns to us is that VA seller is calling the bank and the bank's saying, oh, you can't do a short sale. I understand you're needing to come back to the mainland. Your orders are transferring, or we have somebody in Florida, they're transferring to California via the military. And they call the bank and the bank says, oh, you don't qualify for a short sale because you're current on your mortgage. So what we're seeing is the banks are giving very inaccurate information on short sales. They're staffing back up again because there were no short sales. So they laid everybody off. during those 3 years of COVID. So now they're bringing people in aggressively at the banks and they're not training them properly. So another added layer to all the issues out there is that the banks are giving bad advice to any seller calling in because that VA seller is allowed to be current on their mortgage. So any advice I can please give anybody is be careful when you ask the bank questions.
So let's talk about that because we've been talking. My last two masterminds have been on the on veterans specifically. We had the Hero Star program that came on 2 weeks ago. Last week we had a Assume list where because every VA loan is actually assumable and stuff there as well. So that's been a big topic of conversation. Does a short sale and affect their VA eligibility for using that VA in the future if they were to go through a short sale?
It does. So you have to be careful and educate on that as well. So and it's not dollar for dollar. It's based on the county that they're going to move to and the state they're moving to, the loan limit there. So you can't calculate how it's going to be affected. We stay in touch with contacts within the VA. So the VA is saying that it's we've been told, so I'll go to the VA and say, wait a minute, this loan officer is telling this person this and that person that, which is not, again, accurate. Some loan officers are telling those veterans, oh, your eligibility is going to be frozen for the entire amount. That is not the case. When they go and sell as a short sale and they're ready to buy again, then they're going to go to a loan officer, get a new certificate, and see what they have available. You have the option, the veteran has the option to pay that back,
Are
but
you
that's
sure?
not always the best option for them, according to our contacts at the VA. They're saying, do not do not pay it back if it's not the best thing for you, because some people are going out and they are taking out a loan. So the VA is saying, why would you take out a $75,000 loan and pay back the shortfall? Save that money when you go and are ready to buy again. You can put down a chunk of change and have some instant equity versus paying it back 100% financing and possibly PCSing to another part of the country and being in the same situation yet again. So when there's that VA seller, you really want to reach out to the VA. Everybody has an advisor. Reach out to us. My line is always open. I have these rules inside and out for the veteran. Their credit is not affected much at all because think about it, they're current on their mortgage. So their score can still their 800 score. They have no missed payments. The biggest driver of the credit score is derogatories on a mortgage. But you've got a current seller here with a veteran. So they're going to see minimal to zero tick on their credit. The biggest thing that's going to affect them is that eligibility. So you have to be careful in educating. But the big picture is, do you need to sell? Yes. Do you have the ability to bring the difference to the table? No. Then we've got to talk about short sale because it's far better than any of the other options out there.
Yeah, yeah, and it's going to be more rampant, guys. We talked about the market conditions, and I feel like we're only getting started and stuff at this point in time. This next cycle of I don't know when the shoe is going to drop. I don't know if it's already dropped, but we're in the process at this point in time. So Denise, give us a little background. Man. Give me a little background. In the peak, what was the most amount of short sales and stuff that KC or CK Capital
Okay.
Management processed it in a particular month?
So we would be close to 200 in a given time in a month. It was out of control during the height of the market back in '08 and '09. We were just like a machine. We could navigate the banks. The banks knew us so well. The good news is a lot of the negotiators are actually the same still at the banks. But it was It was just craziness at that time. And what we do is we have good processes in place. We have a team that does the setup. So when our company is handling the short sale, we want to be brought in immediately. We educate the seller. We do free consultations to anybody and everybody, even if it's not going to be a short sale. If a VA seller is maybe $5,000 short, I'm going to say you don't want to do a short sale. So they need that consultation up front. And then we roll into helping our realtors by saying, where are you listed? It's time for a price drop. The banks want to see, sorry, I'm like seeing like the banks
I'm
want,
actually like Eric Bengal. Like I see there's two Eric Bengals, and I know that's not our Eric Bengal, and so I don't know what's going on with that. But I'm putting them like I'm kicking them out at this point in time because I don't know which one is which. So I
oh,
apologize. I'm not
no, no,
sure.
no, no.
Yeah,
No, no, no,
what's
no worries. So then we consult with the seller. Then we're going to go back to you as the realtor and say, so I think it was Beata. Is that correct? I apologize if I did not pronounce your name correctly when you said your win was closing your short sale in a year, which is amazing. But short sales should really take no more than a 90-day tops process. Top. And that's as long as it should take. So we'll educate the realtor up front and say, hey, the seller's loan is VA, FHA, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. The short sale approval process is driven by the investor that that bank is servicing for. And if you don't follow their rules, you're not going to get anywhere. So we'll talk to the seller, find out who the investor is, circle back with our realtor, see it through closing, work with the mortgage company, do all of the processing, and we're just like all of you. Nobody gets paid until we go to the settlement table. There's no retainer, there's no cost. So the value that we bring is the knowledge of the last 24 years and knowing the rule to get it to the settlement table for all of you successfully. But we're just seeing so many more now on top of what you had said, Larry, like people can't make their car payments, they're not paying their state taxes, they're not paying the Fed. But if there's any form of a demonstrated financial hardship, meaning one of the borrowers passed away and or they're getting divorced, 35% of our short sales are divorce. So if they're getting divorced, they need to sell has nothing to do with COVID or anything else. They can't afford the property on their own, independent of each other. So it becomes a short sale.
yeah.
There does, besides VA, have to be that financial hardship. And FHA just recently changed their rules on short sales where if somebody's getting divorced, I think it was November 1st that they changed their rules. If you had an FHA loan, the borrowers must be 61 days delinquent. So legally, nobody's allowed to tell anybody, I know you all know, to miss a mortgage payment, but you can go online. We tell our borrowers and say, you can search it. FHA rule is you must be 61 days delinquent, or you can't even start the short sale process. And that's
Okay.
one of the issues that we're seeing is the person that works at the bank, they're a front end customer service person, not been educated or trained properly. So that's why they're telling the VA sellers you have to miss 2 months of mortgage payments because in their head, everybody has to miss 2 months of mortgage
Yeah,
payments.
they're taking
And
that
that's
one pool for FHA and applying it over every loan class at that point in time.
Yep, exactly. And it's sad because we've had some VA sellers come to us and their realtor who said, got a seller for you. They're all ready. They just skipped 2 months of mortgage payments. And I'm like, no, like they never had to. So,
So Denise, let me ask
just
you this, right? So as this starts to come up more and more, whether it's FHA, VA, conventional, right? Like when should an agent, right, like either start reaching out to the bank or start communicating with somebody like you that how many short sales do you think you guys have negotiated like throughout your guys' 24 years?
oh my gosh, thousands and thousands of them. I mean,
And this is
It,
where, like, so we'll get back to my original question, but I'm getting off on a tangent here. So you negotiated thousands, right? And this is why I brought Denise on here, guys, because this will be a part of the market. You can either learn to do it yourself. It is not something that I recommend, due to the fact that the time that you have to be on the phone, the rules for all of these different, like this is where I want people that know this system better than I do, which is why I brought Denise on here to share her as a resource with you guys. So you negotiated thousands of these, right? And there's some misconceptions that we've already talked about, that you have to be late. You don't always have to be late, right? It depends on the particular loan and stuff. Does this, a lot of agents try and take this on themselves because they're like, I'm already not doing enough business and stuff. I can't give away more of my commission and stuff like that. How does this process work when somebody gets you involved to help negotiate this process from the agent perspective, from your perspective? How does everybody get compensated?
Great question. So we get brought in, and actually, just let me start with, because some people are like, wait, well, how did you get this model? So the model that our company has is such a unique model, and the suggestion was given to us by a loss mitigator at the bank, because as I had said to you early on, we had already been doing short sales for 8 years before the realtors started coming to us. And we were like, oh my gosh, how are we going to get paid? Everybody's working way too hard in a transaction to get to the settlement table. So a loss mitigator at a bank said, as most of you know, because you're familiar with short sales, the bank pays all of the closing costs on a short sale. So the bank actually suggested to us, the loss mitigator, why don't you have that buyer ask for closing cost help from us, a seller's assist, closing cost help, whatever. Um, and then we're going to give a credit to the buyer. And then our company gets paid by a buyer. So we never ever impact our realtor's commission. And then we get the question, well, what if the buyer needs closing cost help for themselves? Well, a buyer that needs closing cost help for themselves isn't always the right buyer on a short sale because it's an as is sale. So if anything comes back on that sale for the buyer's lender who already needs 3 or 6% closing cost help because they're an FHA buyer, and then their lender calls out repairs, and you go back to the seller and say, hey, we need these repairs. The seller doesn't have money to make them, and the bank is not going to make them. So our model is we go over with you, is this the right buyer for this property? Because if you're a listing agent and you're wearing the listing agent hat and you're taking a contract from a buyer on a short sale, on an as is sale, and let's say it falls apart after inspections, what all have you done to your delinquent seller? Pushed them a couple more months towards foreclosure and given them a couple more months of derogatories on their credit. So we will go through, is this buyer the best buyer to begin with? But the buyer puts in the contract that they want to ask for 3% closing cost help. We get paid by same way as you. Realtors, I mean the mortgage company, I'm sorry, will pay 6% commission on government backed loans. So your choice what you pay out to the other side since the new guideline changes. But we always recommend that 6% is asked for from the seller's lender when the contract goes in. And again, you can split that accordingly, 3.5, 2.5, whatever you choose. And
Right.
then we get the credit from the bank that goes to the buyer. And we're a line item on the settlement sheet. There's no side transactions. There's no rest of it. There's no violent. We are on that sheet clear as day that the bank is giving the credit to the seller. I mean, to the buyer, I'm sorry, to offset our company fee. We charge the 3% fee to the start at the start. I will tell you, in certain states, we never get that fee because we want to never take away from our realtors' compensation. So let's say the seller's bank says, we're not going to pay for the condo docs. We're not going to pay for the termite inspection required in Hawaii. Our company will wire the money to the escrow company or the closing office, and we will pay those fees. They come out of that 3% because we never want to say, hey, realtor, if we got to divvy the pot here. So a lot of times the buyer's agent will say, wait, you're asking for 3%? Like we're getting 3%. This person's getting 3%. And I'm like, yeah, we can cut our fee. Absolutely. But if something comes in high later down the line, it's going to come out of your pocket because we've already given up all of our money when you asked us to cut our fee. And it's just a model that has worked since 2008 smoothly and effectively. If you have a cash buyer, though, the difference is, of course, you're not going to ask for closing cost help on a cash deal.
Yeah.
So you lower the purchase price. We're never a premium. They're offering 200,000. Cash is cash. You're not going to do 200,000 on a cash deal and ask for 3% assist. You're just going to lower the offer to 194. And then it'll say processing fee. It's an interesting model, but it did come at the suggestion of an actual bank, the one taking the loss.
Okay. All right. And so, and obviously, you guys have been doing this for over 20 years at this point. You have a lot of successful scenarios and stuff like that. Now, getting back to my original question, right? Because payment is always a big one. Like, well, what's in it for me? How do they get paid, etc. So, thank you for kind of covering that. And
Yeah.
so, just to be clear, the bank compensates you guys for negotiating this entire process, right?
Yeah, on the buyer side of the sheet, though, and we are full disclosure. We have
Yeah.
company documents that get loaded in the multi-listing. Everything we do is so above bar. Like sometimes people will ask us stuff, and I'm like, I'm not losing my livelihood over you. So we are full disclosure. Our documents are going in the multi-listing. Everybody knows we're involved. The buyer agrees, the buyer signs, the closing office, the buyer's lender. Everybody knows it's going to be a credit from the seller to the buyer, a line item on the buyer's side of the sheet.
Beautiful. So now, and guys, I want you to think about this. Think about what Denise has been able to explain to us about all of the different mortgages and stuff like that. This is where I would be positioning for you. Like, could you explain it this way to your client? Could you educate your client this way? If not, this is where I advise Denise, or like, here's the thing. I don't think there's a lot of companies out there like Denise and CK Capital Management because how thin this market has gone. Now, are there going to be new ones and stuff that pop up? Yes. But this is where experience and being able to scale and do thousands already in the pipeline really come into play. When should agents get involved with you in their client, right? Because in my case, I'm like, man, if I'm talking to a client, I'm not trying to break this down. I'm going to call Denise and be like, Denise, can you jump on a three-way or on a Zoom call with me and walk through these options with my client as part of my team and stuff? That's where I'm thinking how we position this. But what do you suggest, and how do you suggest that agents actually get involved with you?
That's absolutely what I suggest. The minute you meet that seller, we want to get on a call and or Zoom, whatever's best for them. Our military sellers are a pretty extensive call because of their entitlement. So that could be up to an hour. But our realtor says, hey, seller, I'm here to list and sell your property and get it sold. I'm not the closing office. I'm not a home inspector. I'm not an appraiser. I'm also not a negotiator with your mortgage company. We need to bring in an expert for that. And I want to schedule a team that's, in my toolbox, Denise McCormick. And my husband's my business partner. He does these calls as well, because you're probably next question going to be like, how do you handle hundreds of calls? Him and I, you will always hear from him and I on the front end of this because we know these rules inside and out. So we want to educate properly. So we want to get on the call, we want to get on the Zoom, and we want to find out who that investor is. Again, is it VA? Is it FHA? And a lot of brokerages now, Larry, they're not even allowing, the state of Maryland won't even allow a realtor to facilitate a short sale anymore. And a lot of
Mm.
brokerages won't allow it because I'm not sure if any of you know, your E&O does not cover if you screw up doing a short sale negotiation with a mortgage company because it had nothing to do with the listing and you chose to be a debt negotiator. It's a whole nother service. I mean, we have to have special licensing in all of the states to do this. I mean, so you, whatever allowed a realtor to go and understand how to navigate a bank and be their negotiator. So a lot of brokerages they're not allowing it. And then we
Yeah.
stay involved with you, even though we do all of the middle part, the facilitating of the short sale. Every single week, I'll check in with my agents and say, any interest, any showings, anything happening? No, you want to do a price drop of 3 to 5% because that's what the bank wants to see. When the offers come in, the bank wants you to meet the appraiser at the property and give the listing history and give your data to help justify it. You don't want to ever take a fake, if you will, offer, a low offer to get things started with the mortgage company because you don't want to get an appraisal too early on. The bank's going to order an appraisal because house is only worth, right, what somebody's willing to pay. So you're on the
Yeah.
market a week, get a fake investor offer. When I say fake, meaning the investor's like, I'm going to buy 50 cents on the dollar. You know it's never going to make it to the table. It's not the right offer for that seller because the bank's going to counter to the appraised value. Um, there was a short sale company that got in big trouble, I believe, in the state of Texas because they were doing that. And Fannie and Freddie came after them and said, you were stalling foreclosures because of throwing in basically straw offers that you knew would never get to the settlement table. And sheriff sales were postponed and we lost X amount of money. So you've got to be
Wow.
really, really careful oh, they were shut down. They're like, I think they've already been
But
arrested.
guys,
Yeah,
I
there's
want
a,
you guys to think about that because if you guys haven't been in that market and stuff in the past, like you will put up a short sale and just like a foreclosure, and you will get these investors that are like, oh, like you can represent both sides. It is not worth your license, right? It is not worth your license to go down that path and possibly be talking about a career change at this point in time for an extra 3%. Like this is where, like, again, I want you to have somebody on your side. And why we're bringing this to you now is because it's not like abundant. It's starting, it's picking up, but it is not abundant. I want you to have these resources before this is actually here. So that way you guys can spend time on more dollar productive behavior and you have a professional on your side of things that can help walk you through this process. Now, Beth had asked, how long does it take to get like an FHA short sale approved on average? We heard Beta talk about, she closed one after a year. Like, what are the general timelines and stuff that you're seeing on your side, Denise?
that's a great question. So FHA, as I said, that has the 61 days delinquency, they have a little bit of a different process where every seller is required to go through an extensive financial review. So if we get brought in early enough, we're going to start that financial review before you even have an offer. So on all of our short sales, we're going to be working this, not even knowing if it's going to get to settlement or if you're ever going to get an offer, but it's going to speed up the process when that offer comes in. So FHA can be that's the longest one with the process. They are 60 to 75 days. They require the property to be on the market a minimum of 15 days before an offer can even be accepted. They have to go through that financial review. They get an appraisal. They issue a document called an approval to participate. So their process is a little longer. I love how you asked about FHA because FHA just has very, very strict guidelines on their process and how that works. Any other short sales, our VAs are about 45 days. The banks were inundated with short sales over the last 3 or 4 months. They're starting to now make their processes more efficient. So for the last 3 or 4 months, it's been a nightmare because Rocket Mortgage bought out Mr. Cooper. Rocket
Right.
Mortgage dumped a whole bunch of their loans onto M&T. So in a 1 week period, we had 10 files shut down with Rocket Mortgage. Two of them gone to closing that week and said, too bad it's going to M&T. So it was a nightmare back in June, but they are getting more people hired in the loss mitigation department. So about 45, 60 days. And then, Brianna, I see your question regarding the attorney handling it. There are attorneys that handle short sales. Well, they're paralegals behind the scene. We do deal with divorces. Divorces are a whole nother issue in themselves, but a divorce decree doesn't always trump, the seller, both sellers having to cooperate. Like even if one person is entitled to the house, the mortgage company says unless you did a quit claim deed and they were removed from the deed, they've both got to cooperate.
Mhm.
Bankruptcies, if you're chapter 13, you got to get permission from the court. A chapter 7, you got to wait um for it to be fully dismissed. So we get involved in all of that as well. So we can navigate the bankruptcy attorneys, we work with them all of the time, and the divorce attorneys. We go ahead, we actually clear all of title. So when the short sale offer comes in, we'll ask the title company for the title. And if they have IRS liens, if they have state liens for not paying taxes, our company clears all that as well. That's all part of that same exact fee,
Yeah.
though. We
And
don't
so Jeff
charge any
Jeff
extra.
Russell has a question. He says, which lenders are not obligated to approve any short sale amount? Like, for example, a hard money lender, a private money lender, right? Maybe a non-DSCR loan. What would you say to that?
So hard money lenders and those lenders that are extremely difficult to deal with, especially if they're in second or third position and they got a hard money loan for a fix up or something, and on top of having their original loan, they can say, wow, the first lien's only giving me $2,000. We're not going to take it. So any lender can say they're not going to do a short sale if you don't follow their rules. It's not specific to the hard money lenders. Just certain people are more difficult to deal with. Credit unions. So credit unions don't want to have bad debt on their books. So if you have a seller doing a short sale and they have a credit union or a local bank, that bank or credit union may say, sure, we'll release the lien against the property, but we're going to pursue the remaining balance owed. They need to set up some form of payment plan because if there's bad debt on a credit union's books, that impacts their borrowing out there in the market, and then that impacts their lending. So they try and minimize the bad debt on their books. But you have to think about it this way as well. Same thing with that VA seller who needs to sell. If they're going after you in a short sale situation, I can tell you they are 100% going to put a judgment against you and still try and collect post foreclosure. They're not going to go away just because you foreclose. They're still coming after you. And that balance is going to be a whole lot higher than what it would be with the short sale
Yeah,
because
because
it's got
all
to
of those
run.
fees, yeah, everything starts tacking on. And then there was two questions on relocation assistance being asked for and granted. Is that still something that's offered to the seller that's in this distressed situation?
It is. So again, those investors have specific rules. So FHA offers $3,000 relocation incentive, but they must be living and maintaining the home. And in addition to that, if they had what I talked about early on, one of those loans where they did the modification and they have that second mortgage put on by FHA, that disqualifies them from getting any moving money. So it's very specific to who gets the moving money. And we get all of the time. My neighbor did a short sale. They got $3,000. I want $3,000. Doesn't work that way. So it's specific to their own situation. VA, they offer $1,500. Again, only if the house is occupied. And if it's a Fannie loan, they're offering up to $7,500 if it's occupied. They're trying to have the borrower maintain the property. That's why
Yeah.
they're giving the money. If you've moved out, it's too late. You're not getting it.
Okay. And this is a perfect segue. Thank you, Karen, because this was the next thing on my topic. So like as this starts to come up, right? Like people can always reach out to me and I'm happy to connect you. Just how Kina, like we were actually introduced by Kina, who is an absolute rock star on the islands, one of the top producers out there that's part of our group. Denise came to us from one of the most credible sources I can think of. Um, but how do people get in if they don't want Larry to be a middleman? How do they get in touch with you directly? Do you want to put your information in the chat?
Yep.
Do you have a website? Like, how do people contact you to help start educating their clients, guys? And this is where I would use Denise heavily, right? Like, I wouldn't try to learn all of this, right? Like, you may have done 100 short sales in the past. The game has changed, the rules have changed, etc. Like, unless you're up to all of the new rules, regulations, banks, like everything else, like this is where I would have somebody like Denise on your team helping support you and stuff like this. So, Denise, how do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'm going to put all my information right in this chat. So you'll have my website, and then I'll put my name and my cell in there. And then you can just contact me that way. If that's
Beautiful.
okay, that's the easiest way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to
Yeah.
Absolutely.
say I'm from Connecticut and I watched a realtor, attorney, and a facilitator in our state. They committed federal fraud in short sales and they all went to federal prison. One is still missing in Mexico, but I think having a facilitator cleans up everything along the way because they were buying their own short sales in a third party company. But
Mm.
just the fact it cleans the plate. And, if E&O is not going to cover us, then absolutely we can't be exposed individually.
Yeah,
I
that's a really great point, Terry, and kind of like what Denise was talking about in Texas, right? Like there will be investors that are like, "Hey, submit this offer, and you can represent both sides, right?" Like, look, their spread is way bigger than your couple, like our couple of percentage points at this point. It is not worth a career change. So that is a
Yeah.
beautiful point, and again, something that you guys want to be cautious of because look, nobody's going to have a problem when the bank accepts the property. You collect both commissions, you do this, you do that, everybody's happy. But you can't duplicate that, right? And as more of these get stacked on, it's just going to open you up for more and more and more liability at that point in time. And so you guys want to be very proactive with this and think about all of the liability and stuff that this opens up.
Yes, and that I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, for example, I got a call last week from a realtor who said, "Hey, I needed to land this listing. I mean, I was competing against other people. How are you going to work this out, Denise? I promised her $10,000." I go, "Okay, well, I'm stepping away and having no parts of this transaction." I said, "Do you understand?" He gave me the scoop. I said, "They have an IRS lien. You're messing with the Fed here. The IRS has taken zero and receiving nothing because the seller has financial distress from a first and second, and you're promising her $10,000?" Yeah. And so we are seeing a lot of that just to get a listing. He said, "I wanted to get the listing, so I had to tell her I'd give her money." Okay.
Mhm.
Do you want to go to jail?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not worth it there, guys.
It's not worth it.
We have a few minutes left here. I want to be respectful. Are there any other closing comments or anything like that? Wendy Martin, what do you got?
Yeah, I just have a quick question, Denise, because my business partner and I closed and negotiated over 200 short sales, and it shortened my life. Um, but our biggest ammo was the CFPB, and now there's like three people working there. Are you still able to use that to strong arm by opening a ticket and letting them know you're gonna do that?
No, they are useless. I'm sorry. I'm just being direct. You will get nowhere with the CFPB. You will get nowhere with the banking commission. We've tried all of that. We take our VA loans directly to our advisors at the VA if we're having trouble with the servicer. So we've had huge success there. So no issues. Our Fannie, we have a direct contact at Fannie Mae. VA, somebody was kind enough a very long time ago and I was promised that I'm never to share her information. But every time I have a servicer that's giving me like a little bit of issue on my FHA rules, I go to her. She's directly within FHA, like she's right in DC. So our company has our people with every single investor that are secretly held. Their names were given to me over the years. So it's been amazing. So that's how we solve our problems. You don't get anywhere with the tickets anymore. They always had the servicer side as of the last few years. And I think they're trying to shut down the CFPB, right?
Yeah. Well, I'll be
Yeah.
using you. Thank you, Denise.
You're welcome.
Any other closing remarks or questions that we have, guys? Man, Denise, thank you so much. Oh,
And I just am going to add, like, just in case you guys are all wondering. So behind the scenes, we do have a staff of people. We have any of you that have done short sales, you'll be very familiar with Equator. Wendy, probably you. It's an online system. A lot of the banks still use this online system. So if we're having issues there, we email outside Equator and have our people outside Equator. But we have one person in our office that literally stares at her computer. She's been working with for us for like 15 years. And she's our Equator girl, our dock police girl, and she checks everything to allow for the success of things to move real slow. So we have a whole staff of calling every single day. Is our authorization there? No, it takes 2 to 3 days. Doesn't matter. You call the next day. Is our authorization there? So we're very high touch, which is what allows to the success. I didn't want you to think it was just me and Bill. We got a whole group that's been working with us for years behind the scenes. We do the front end because we want to educate properly. Everything is about educating for us. We have continuing ed classes in a lot of the states. We visit our states regularly, do a lot of in person, go to Hawaii every year. We're in Florida all the time. So we're there for you if we're in your state to educate in person because I love seeing everybody in person.
wonderful. Real quick, Denise, a few more questions before we wrap up here. I have Kendra, are there any short sale certifications that you
You just
recommend?
froze for a minute.
Oh, can you hear me? Are you back?
Okay, sorry, I lost you for a second.
No problem. So the question was from Kendra over in Las Vegas. Are there any specific short sale certifications that you recommend agents take?
There's the distressed property sale class, but again, we're seeing that it's just an overview, and it's making some realtors be a little bit more dangerous because they think they took the class and
Yeah, they
they
have some
can,
confidence. Yeah, they have some
yeah,
confidence, right?
yeah.
They're like, oh, I'm short sale certified, right? Like,
I
let me go help people with this.
I know. And I'm like, oh, so my best advice is to, if you know somebody in your area, if it's not us that does short sales all day, every day, you need to call them and you need to ask them, what do I need to ask my seller? Tell me about the investor, etc. But the certifications, I'm not finding anything. I mean, there's certain realtors that will just put in their signature line of their email. There's one in our area, and when you Google, she comes up so high, and she's never done a short sale ever, just short sale expertise, and we do her short sales. But people reach out to her because she does have an expert in her toolbox, and she pops right up when somebody searches short sales. So
Yeah, and
try,
there's going to be a lot of SEO, GEO around this. Like, there's going to be more and more people searching for this, and you guys want to come up. But again, I would be very cautious on how much you kind of, put out there. But this is where having the right resources, getting on a three-way call with your client, educating your client so that way they can make the best choice possible for themselves. And there was a couple more questions on compensation and stuff. One more, if you could give like a 30-minute section, right? Like, how do you get compensated, etc. Like, could you just run through that one more time for everybody?
Yes. So the bank does pay. I'm trying to see some of the questions. The bank does pay The realtor fees both sides, as I said, the 6% typically. If it's a hard money loan, they're going to cut the commission to 5. Okay, they're not going to pay 6. The government-backed loans will typically pay 6. So they pay the 6, and then on your agreement of sale or your purchase contract, in the seller's assist section, closing cost help section, you're going to have a buyer ask for 3% closing cost help. And that closing cost help will be given to the buyer, and that's how our company gets paid. So there's no interference. The seller never pays us a dime. We are paid on the buyer side of the settlement sheet. Sometimes there's a line item for us on the seller side of the sheet if there's a title fee. If we're covering something like huge, a bankruptcy attorney fee or something like that, then the bank will allow our line item to be called a title service fee. But there will never be a dime from the seller's actual pocket. And we work the file for 0 until we get to the settlement table. We're like you. We don't get paid till we get to closing. So we have full motivation. We don't get any cut of title. A lot of the attorneys do short sales because they get a cut of the title insurance. So that's the reason that they can charge such a low fee for their paralegals doing it, because they're getting the closing in most places. And then they get whatever their cut of that insurance is. So that's why they started doing short sales. I mean, that's a lot of attorneys have told us that directly, that this is why we took these on.
And Shantia asked, do you work with particular closing attorneys in each state? Do you have like a preferred list and stuff that you like to work with?
We always take our realtors' recommendations. I mean, so in our backyard, of course, we know all of the attorneys because we're friends with them and they're paralegals, and they will have a specific paralegal that they assign to our files because it's difficult. I mean, they've got to answer their emails. When I need a change on the sheet, when we're at closing time, there could be 5, changes back and forth, because right before closing, the seller's lender needs the final settlement sheet from the closing attorney. So we take your lead on that for someone you have a relationship with. We introduce ourselves to them, and then we hope that we'll continue to be able to build a relationship with them and work directly with them. But we don't. I mean, there are some people we like better than others in many of the states, but we'll also take your lead if you have a relationship with somebody.
All right, guys. Well, thank you guys so much today. Like, this was absolutely amazing. Denise, like, as this market progresses, I would love to bring you back and continue this education, maybe like once a quarter with this group, and bring in fresh people, fresh faces and stuff to this group, because I think this is really going to be needed here in the near future. So thank you so much. Guys, if you missed any of the information, if you want to go back, this will be posted on YouTube a little bit later today. All of Kathy's information is in the chat box there, and we will also post it on our YouTube link, so that way you guys can reach out to her directly. If for some reason you're like, oh, what was the short sale lady's name? Like, well, the company, like, just reach out to me. I'm happy to make a connection and stuff there. Denise, so grateful for you. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great day, and we will talk to you guys soon.
Thank you, everybody. I look forward to working with you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Denise. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right.
Thanks.
Have a great weekend, guys.
Have a great day.